intellectual cognitive skills about reasoning, thinking deeper. And then creativity comes into play. Let's pretend to be a soldier. Let's pretend to be a ballerina. Let's pretend to do that. And why are we doing that pretense, that imaginary thing? To develop their creativity so they can think beyond themselves.
Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Thozi.
My goodness. Junior Jive. Tell us about Junior Jive. I understand you do it in schools, and special needs qualification got you to this thinking. Parenting probably also got into this thinking. Tell us more about Junior Jive.
Thank you, Thozi. Junior Jive is my passion. As an entrepreneur and a woman, I wanted to have a company that empowers women. And because of my history in education, I've always used music in my teaching. I had the privilege of growing up in a musical home. My mother was a music teacher, so music was part of us as a family, and I also used it in my education. So when I was in teaching, I would think, how can I use my music in class?
Right.
So when we did our times table, what did we do? We sang the times table. When we had writing lessons, what did I do? I put classical music on while they did writing.
Right.
Because classical music stimulates the whole brain. And writing is focused on the one part of the brain, but the music then stimulates the whole brain. So your motor skills are then much easier to develop with this music that's going on while you're busy practicing your writing. So I used music in my everyday teaching, and eventually I started thinking, how can we as educators use music and movement to develop the whole child?
Right.
Because often at school, what we do is we divide the child into different sections. First we do our physical education, then we do our maths, then we do our language. So we break it up into different boxes.
Right.
And I see the child as a whole. And when a child is seen as a whole, what do? You educate the child as a whole. And how do you do that? Through things the children love to do. And what does a child love to do? They love to move. And they love music. So that is the joy that I bring to children. We do Junior Jive, which is music and movement, and that is what we do. We do the joy of learning through music and through movement.
You're talking about the whole child. And in previous episodes, I've spoken about the child being spirit, soul, and body. So you are educating the whole of that in that environment. Junior Jive, I don't think in schools near to me I've seen Junior Jive. Which schools have taken Junior Jive, and how did you bring it to schools? Some of the schools that you have.
Yes. Essentially, I thought, where do we start? We start at birth.
Right.
Because that's where we need to start with development. So I have started with preschools. Junior Jive is focusing on teaching children from the ages of 0 to 8 years old. That is the focus that we are working with at the moment. And the reason is because child development starts from birth. And we often think that preschool is not important, but it is the most important. Early childhood development is far more important than high school in my eyes. Right. Some people will disagree with me, but that is where the foundation lies. When you get the foundation right, the other stuff can be built on properly. But without the foundation, you don't have much to build on. Right. And that is why I started Junior Jive in preschools. Right. So preschools are where we are focusing and working with. We're working with the preschool owners. We're working with preschool teachers to train them, to show them the benefit of music and movement in their classes every single day.
Jenny, we know, parents have come to know that phase of development is the doing phase. It's the will phase. It's where the child learns by doing things. And we think they're doing enough. What is different that music and movement does, because they're already moving? Healthy children are moving. When they're in preschools, they are moving, depending, of course, on how big that preschool is, how big a yard they have. There are preschools that have got really small spaces. I want you to tell us more about the importance of all of that. You've touched on the music and the movement. Tell us more about the work environment in that preschool environment.
The problem with our society is that we are moving more and more towards a sitting society. And our children are sitting more and more. And what is that doing? Our gross motor skills are not as they should be. Our children are not climbing trees like they used to. They are not moving like they used to. And that is why it is important to have programs like Junior Jive that develops motor skills. And how do we get children moving? That is where the music comes in. We add music to that movement. Then we are not telling them to jump up and down 10 times. We're saying, listen to this funky music. Let's jump, 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 jump. Or let's be jumping on a trampoline. Pretend we are jumping on a trampoline. Or let's march like soldiers. This music sounds like it's marching. Or let's skate like in a waltz we are on an ice rink. Let's skate, and we do that. So with using music as the creative medium, we are then developing their motor skills as well. But music, in essence, has so many elements to it. I've touched on creativity in that sense. The jobs of the future, we don't know what's going to happen. And COVID-19 has actually brought that into our faces in a very clear way. Where do we go for the future of our children in terms of skills, in future work? They need cognitive skills. They need creativity. And how do we develop that? Through music. Now, you might be thinking, that's crazy. How can music help me with creativity? But with music, we teach them listening skills. We teach them to listen to the music. What does the music make you feel? How does it make you feel? So what are we doing? We're developing emotional skills. We're developing all those intellectual cognitive skills about reasoning, thinking deeper. And then creativity comes into play. Let's pretend to be a soldier. Let's pretend to be a ballerina. Let's pretend to do that. And why are we doing that pretense, that imaginary thing? To develop their creativity so they can think beyond themselves.
Oh, goodness. You have covered two important things for me. You're saying we are becoming a sitting society. And so much that we buy games for our children to sit in front of a screen and play. And you're saying that destroys certain things, certain skills in our children. And I think as parents, we can invite ourselves to look at how we grew up. And if the environment, our neighborhoods, doesn't allow that movement, that climbing of trees, it is important thereof that our ECD environment, early childhood development centers, have the things that will allow children to be children, to learn, to move, to learn by using this body, to discover this body. And in the discovery, you are also mentioning the music part. Like a child has a chance of finding themselves in there and getting to know and feel for themselves what is going on. Talk to us about that that movement. In the movement, what can you say about balance and the structure of the body and so on? Where does movement really take a person?
In our junior Jive curriculum, we have different age groups. We have divided the curriculum according to the different developmental stages. Right. And so our baby maestros are our babies from birth up to crawling. And then our maestros on the move, we call them, because they're starting to move, are our crawlers to walkers, and then further on. But talking about the movement part, children learn through movement. When you have a baby, how do they learn? They learn through that movement of the suckling first, and then the exploration, and then the touching, and then starting to crawl, etc., etc. That is the movement that they are busy learning. So learning and movement go hand in hand. And in the Junior Jive program, we have a specific activity focusing on movement because we believe it is so important. Yeah. And that is why through those developmental stages, the child will then go towards the balancing later on, to standing on one leg later on, to skipping, which is a very complicated skill to learn with a child by the age of 6. Mm-hmm. So our curriculum then takes that child through step by step through the ages and the developmental stages until they're able to do that.
It sounds like you're addressing several things about balance. I mean, it's interesting that you start from babies.
Yes.
In terms of babies, I mean, what do they know about music?
Thozi, that is what's so exciting. A child's brain is a sponge. And as a baby, that child just learns and learns and learns. So the more stimulus we can give the child's brain, the better. And that is what's so exciting about music. Music has been, the scientists tell us how they see it on the scans, how when children listen and move to music and participate in movement and music activities, their whole brain is stimulated. So when we do that with a baby and we sing to the baby and we focus on the baby, we are teaching them to move their limbs because we are moving their limbs for them while we are singing to them. We are teaching them auditory skills because they're listening to our tone of voice. They're listening to the calm voice that is being sung. They are learning language because they are learning that tone and the rhymes, the complexes of language right from there. So besides the motor skills and the balance, there's so much more to it when we bring in the movement and the music.
So you are saying even our singing to our children, our telling the story to our babies, already the brain is taking it in, is learning the language, is picking up, is being creative in that it's stimulated. And we grew up with our grandparents singing to us.
Yes.
And less, just like the sitting you talked about earlier, less and less of those things that we know are natural in human beings. We are losing them. So Junior Jive has brought that back into spaces.
Absolutely, and it's very important. Singing is our first instrument.
Yeah.
And it's our voices that we have to teach our children about. Right. Children don't know how to sing anymore.
Right.
They haven't been taught because they haven't been sung to. And that we don't want to lose. So in Junior Jive, we again have a specific activity where we focus on singing. We focus on singing to the babies, and then later on when the children start talking back to us, we teach them about their different voices. We talk about your speaking voice and we talk about your singing voice. So they get to learn what happens in the body when we change from a speaking voice to a singing voice. And then we start teaching about pitch. because when we teach them about pitch, they are able to then further that with musicality and musicianship later on. So there's more to it than just teaching about the different voices. We're teaching them about singing, and that is a skill, a lifelong skill.
Yeah, and that's the creativity we're talking about.
Yes.
Because I facilitated processes for young people. And one of the things that was incorporated in this program of out of school, out of work, young people 18 to 26, we started the day by singing and dancing.
Wonderful.
Singing and movement.
Yes.
By the end of the 9-week program, Jenny, these young people were so creative. They had done several things, have found themselves, and have created several things in this space that was created for them. But also the decision-making process that happened. Several of them went back to schools to further their studies, decided on a career because they found themselves. So you are saying when we lose that, we have a better chance of allowing people to don't know what they want, to not know what careers they want for their future, to not know why they should be in schools. So in a way, dropouts happen because a child hasn't found themselves. Absolutely. So this space creates an opportunity for getting to know what I'm about.
Yes. And it's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
Because like you said in the program that you did, when you started the day with singing and dancing and movement, it uplifts people and it makes them feel part of a group.
A unit,
and it feels singing and moving uplifts us no matter how we feel. And that's why I just love my job, because no matter what's happening in my life, when I start to move and sing with my children, I'm uplifted, because that's what music automatically does to all of us.
And you bring me back to what we experience as parents. You know, you're listening to radio, people are talking about the kind of music, adults are talking about the kind of music they have on their radios as they drive to work or back, because they know the importance of that or what it does to them. But I don't think people have taken it to child development.
Yes.
So taking it to child development, we are being educated here in this discussion that there's a lot of brain development that happens at 0 to 7. And of course, always, but more so, a lot of it where you mentioned that the child is a sponge.
Yes.
But we also know that at teenagehood, they are in the thinking phase.
Yes.
And there's another level of brain development.
Yes.
So is there a chance that junior jive becomes a high school jive?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I started junior jive at that phase because we have to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
We have to start where the child is born. And every few years we add on another age group. So we just started until age 4, and then we went to 6. Now we're at 8. So we are going there. We're getting there slowly but surely. And what I do in junior jive is I find teachers who are music specialists. So teachers who have a passion for music as well. So junior jive is where we empower women to be more than just a teacher, more than just a musician, more than just a parent. We're actually putting all of that together to show the child that there's creativity in this music and movement. So that is where we're going with junior jive, and we hope that one day we'll get to the teenagers and we will definitely be able to do a high school jive or something like that.
Junior jive has now 8-year-olds, which means 7 and 8 are already in primary schools.
Yes.
Not just preschools, you're in primary schools. And in my parent-to-parent discussion program, I talk about that phase being the feeling phase, where we are to teach joy and love because they are open-hearted. What has been your experience working with 7 and 8-year-olds in schools?
They are now reaching the age where they are able to start reading.
Yeah.
So we can extend the program to be more comprehensive. So we can add in music concepts.
Right.
So that helps to the intellectual side, the knowledge side.
Right.
So we bring in music concepts and music terminologies and teaching about composers, South African composers. We learn about Huma Sakela. We're teaching all about those kind of things to then develop their general knowledge in terms of music. But that brings them joy anyway.
Yeah.
Because we then feed into what music are they listening to? What is the genres that they are looking at and listening to, and then bringing it into that. And then we study that in terms of what is that in maths?
Yeah.
Because maths and music have many links. So as I said at the beginning, where I said when I was a class teacher, I used to use music when I taught my times table. We used to sing 2 times 2 is 4. And we used to sing that. And with that singing, they actually learnt it without actually knowing it.
Right.
So besides the concept of teaching, a concept of 2 and a 2 makes a 4, we actually then taught them through singing that kind of rote learning as well. So that's when the joy and the emotions come into it at a later stage. Yes.
Wow. So we have covered the will phase, the emotional feeling phase, the thinking phase of having 18-year-olds dance and do music in youth development. Tell us about the impact of all of this to children with special needs.
Yes. That is very close to my heart.
Yeah.
So Junior Jive curriculum is actually developed so that any child of any ability can use it. So it is not specifically age appropriate, it's developmentally appropriate. So a child who is on the autism spectrum can use the program according to where they feel comfortable and their ability is. I've taught the program to children with Down syndrome. I've taught the program to children who are physically disabled. So children who are in a wheelchair, they can't necessarily jump up and down, but we can shake instruments, we can sing, we can bring the joy of music to them, and they are then learning through that. So special needs and special education has a definite fit in terms of music and movement. Parents often think, oh no, my child can't do that. Don't say that. Never say that. We will find a way. We are involved with a special needs school, quite a few in fact, here in Johannesburg and in Cape Town, where we specially change our curriculum to fit the children's needs in that school so that they can get the joy of music and movement as well.
I am thinking that parents will say, now that we know what we know from this sharing, may say, how do I get my child into that space? But also a parent that says, I'm sitting with an autistic child. I really want Jenny or Junior Jive to just speak to me individually. My child's school doesn't have that, but do you do one-on-ones?
We are now doing online lessons. So pre-recorded so that the parents can actually then choose a time that they can go and do the lessons.
Right.
We have teachers who we are training in special education.
Right.
So if depending on a child who has that need, at the moment we have a child who is not able to see. So we design the program on hearing a lot and explaining a lot. So she won't be able to do our online lessons because she can't see.
Yeah.
But our teacher then sends her an audio lesson.
Right.
So then she explains how to do it, and then she does it like that at home. And once COVID-19 is sorted and we are back to doing our face-to-face lessons, then we go and give those children a face-to-face lesson, which makes it so much easier.
Wow. This has been rich for me, and I trust that it has been rich for the parents themselves. Parents, I hope you have learned a thing or two and have remembered the importance of music, and maybe you've seen it in your own life. And we have Jenny's links in our description below, so follow her, check what she offers, but also don't forget to like on our program, to comment, and to subscribe. See you next time.
Thank you for watching. Please check the description box below for more information on the program and how to get hold of us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to get updates on our future uploads.